The Cleveland Browns have cleaned house. The Browns fired their head coach, Freddie Kitchens. They also, I'm going to say it more nicely, they parted ways with their general manager, John Dorsey. And John Dorsey was really interesting. He built a really talented roster in Cleveland, but he does not seem to value maturity or locker room cohesion at all. And I think that's the big shortcoming that John Dorsey faced in Cleveland with the roster he built. He made some big moves in Cleveland. You got to acknowledge, he traded for Odell Beckham Jr., drafted Baker Mayfield. John Dorsey did a lot of stuff that on paper you go, hey, they got a lot of talent in that building. But he appeared to completely lack the any desire to build a team with emotional maturity. And that's a problem. Whether it's, Myles Garrett getting into a fight or Baker Mayfield's mouth or bringing in players with troubled pasts, John Dorsey, as a general manager, never appeared to value emotional maturity among his players, and I think that really cost him his job, and it cost him more success in Cleveland than he could have had. Now, Freddie Kitchens, the head coach, I just feel sad for him. I feel so sad for Freddie Kitchens. I learned about something recently called the Peter Principle, and the Peter Principle was developed by Lawrence J. Peter. It's from a book released in 1969. 69 is a great number, called The Peter Principle. That's the name of the book. I slipped in a joke. I hope you guys got it. Of course you did. I'm immature. I'm 22. Leave me alone. I'm sorry. But the main idea is that at some point in a hierarchy, every employee rises to a level of incompetence, which means that people get promoted until we meet a ceiling. And then when we meet that ceiling, we reach a level called it's incompetence. And eventually everybody ends up in over their heads if they keep getting promoted enough. And that's exactly what happened to Freddie Kitchens. He was just promoted above his pay grade. He was promoted, because he was good at his old job. And the reality is Freddie Kitchens never should have been given a head coaching job. He did not have the tools he needed to succeed as an NFL head coach. And it's really heartbreaking. I feel bad for Freddie Kitchens. I am sure that Freddie's job was to become a head coach. That was his dream. He wanted that forever. And he got his dream job and he failed. And he wasn't prepared for it. And he really should have never been in that position in the first place. And it's just sad. It really is. It's kind of heartbreaking. I feel bad for it. He seems like a good man and a nice guy. But the reality is that Freddie Kitchens did not do a good enough job making adjustments with his football team. He didn't build an offense that served the skill set of the players he had. He misused their star receiver, Odell Beckham Jr. He stuck with what he knew and didn't build an offense that would help his players succeed. He didn't adjust. He didn't build an offense, particularly around Baker Mayfield, the quarterback's number one skill set, which is using RPOs, throwing short passes, getting the ball out quickly. He just did not set his team up to succeed, and it's really sad. And then Freddie Kitchens also showed bad judgment, both on and off the field. He wore a shirt that riled up Pittsburgh. He wore a shirt blaming Pittsburgh for a fight that happened between the two teams. He stirred the pot just in an immature way. And it's sad because Freddie Kitchens, this was his first time ever being a head coach. And, at any level, by the way. He'd never been a head coach before, which is baffling to me why they chose him. And he just never should have been put in that position in the first place. It's just kind of sad when you think about Freddie Kitchens. He just was not put in a position to be successful. And so moving forward, the Cleveland Browns, they need a grown-up. The Browns need to find somebody who, their franchise needs to find someone who values emotional maturity. But they also need to find someone who can help their young quarterback, Baker Mayfield, not only grow as a quarterback, but grow as a young man. Grow as a man. They need to find someone who's been a head coach before. They need to find a head coach who has experience coaching for a long time, in my opinion. And in my opinion, there are two candidates. I'm sure there are more out there, but these are two that jump to my mind as potential head coaching candidates for the Cleveland Browns job. Number one is the longtime college head coach, Urban Meyer. And here's why Urban Meyer makes sense to me. Not only, number one, he's from Ohio. He coached a lot in Ohio just in general. He knows Ohio well. He's popular. He's lived there for a long time. And I have to acknowledge this first before we jump into things. When Urban Meyer left Ohio State, his last head coaching job, there was some ugliness and there's some stuff in his past that's not pretty. And I acknowledge that. I own that. However, I read Tim Tebow's book. Tim Tebow's the former Florida quarterback. His head coach when he was at Florida was Urban Meyer. And I remember in this book, Tim Tebow talking about getting lunch consistently with Florida head coach Urban Meyer. And Tim Tebow attributes a lot of his maturity and growth as a person to all those times having lunch with Urban Meyer. They go to his office and have lunch. And I really want that for Baker Mayfield. I really, really want to see Baker Mayfield in a situation where he's getting lunch with a guy like Urban Meyer 3, 4, maybe 5 times a week. picking his brain, learning about life, learning about more than just football, but learning about how to become a better man. And I think a situation, getting a guy like Urban Meyer would be so good for Baker Mayfield. Now Mike McCarthy is the former Green Bay Packers head coach. He won a Super Bowl. He is an offensive-minded head coach, and he's done it before. He has experience. So I think Mike McCarthy is another good option to be the Browns head coach. Now, there was some ugliness when Mike McCarthy left the head coaching job in Green Bay. It sounded like Mike McCarthy was kind of coasting at the end. He knew he could get away with certain things, so he was doing that. And I honestly find it hard to blame Mike McCarthy for the negative ending he had in Green Bay. In Green Bay, with that franchise, he was dealing with a power struggle between Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, and himself, the head coach. And he knew that the Packers organization was going to choose Aaron Rodgers over him. He knew he was a sitting duck just waiting to get canned. And so I think that you can excuse some of the things, some of the stories you hear about the end of Mike McCarthy's time in Green Bay. I mean, if you knew you were going to get fired and you were sad about it and grieving, like I think there are reasons for Mike McCarthy's behavior. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach. He clearly understands how to coach in the NFL. And I really believe that his experience would be valuable in Cleveland, Ohio as the Browns head coach. Now, whether or not the Browns hire Urban Meyer, Mike McCarthy, no matter who they hire, they must. The number one thing they have to hire is they have to hire an experienced, wise head coach. Hire someone who's been there before. Whoever that guy is, whoever they feel like they need. I threw out two names. I'm sure there are other names out there that would be good, but the number one priority for the Cleveland Browns is they must find an experienced head coach who values emotional maturity.